My name is Alan Journay. I'm one of the co-facilitators of Southern Oregon Climate Action Now. I'd like to welcome you to the program and offer a few Zoom tips. If you haven't been using Zoom as often as we have, these might be worthwhile thinking about. Whilst the program is going on, please mute yourself. We don't mute everybody. We trust everybody to mute themselves. If you have any questions, please write them in the chat. Kathy mentioned this a moment ago, that you should see a chat icon in the bottom of your screen. If you click on that, the chat box will open. And when you have a question, please type it in and then hit enter. And the questions will just accumulate. And then when we break in the middle of Julie's presentation and then get to the end, Kathy will go through the questions and pass them on to Julie. If you are interested in experimenting with what you are seeing, you should see in the top right-hand side of your screen the word view with the 3x3 dots. And if you click on the word view, you get an option to either view the program in the side-by-side mode where the speaker is large, or the side-by-side gallery when everybody is like the Hollywood Squares format. So you can get to decide whichever way you want to do it. And if you want to play around backwards and forwards, that's okay. The program that you're about to watch is being recorded. So if you don't want people to see you see yourself, hold your hand over your face or something like that. Okay. Oh, you could put a brown bag over your head if you want to do that. The format for the program is we start with the presentation coming right up. Then we have responses to the questions. As I said, we're going to have a break in the middle for some questions, and then we'll have questions at the end. And the last few minutes of the program, Kathy is going to entertain you with a discussion of what's happening in Socan with our projects and what other groups are doing in the climate active arena. We also will have a link to actions that you can engage in as a consequence of the stimulation that you get from Julie's presentation. She is sharing with us a bunch of things that you can do to address the issue. What you have to do is go to socan.eco/action and select water conservation. That shouldn't be hard to find. Okay, I'm now going to pass the microphone to Eric, who has known Julie for a lot longer than any of the rest of us. And Eric is going to do the introduction. Over to you, Eric. We're going to stop sharing.
Thank you, Alan. Yes, I've known Julie since 2006 or 7 or 8 as a student at SOU. She graduated in 2008, Environmental Studies program with emphasis in geology, and has since become a rising star in water resource, water conservation. She was a water conservation specialist for the city of Ashland, and she was good at it enough to, the Ashland won't let her go, even though she is now with the Medford Water Resources Commission as water resource coordinator. She's also licensed irrigation auditor, member of the American Water Works Association, and a trustee in that. She has been appointed as a state water resources commissioner. That's a real honor, and it's lucky for us to have that representation on that critical commission, especially now with ongoing drought. I've been involved with water resources in this valley for 40 years, and I can assure you there is no one better than Julie to talk about this topic and at this time. So, Julie?
Well, wow. Thank you for that introduction, Eric. Want to live up to those expectations, and thank you everyone for having me tonight. I'm just going to share my screen real quick so we can get the presentation going. Can everyone see this all right? So far, so good. Thumbs up, all right. So tonight, we're here to talk about basically how climate change is impacting our water supplies and our water resources, the different water supplies that we have in the Rogue Valley, and what water users and water suppliers can do to make a difference, not only this year, but in the future. Now, when thinking about climate change, I don't know about you, but it starts to feel a little overwhelming. It's a little daunting to know where to start or whether or not we're actually making a difference. It's a very complicated issue that have impacts in several areas, and it impacts just about everything in our world right now. I also think it leaves a lot of people not knowing what to do, feeling like maybe their contributions aren't changing anything. But hopefully after we talk tonight and go over a few resources, that you feel like you're a little more empowered to make changes in how we use our water and how we manage our water in the valley. Let's just quickly review some of the impacts of climate change. To put it simply, climate change is a long-term change in average weather patterns. The causes are mainly human activities, primarily fossil fuels burning and contributing to greenhouse gases that actually cause global warming, and in addition to some natural earth processes. But some of these impacts that we're seeing, such as sea level rise, droughts, reduced snowpack, wildfires, increased air temperature, and on and on. The issues go more than I can put on this slide. And so tonight we're going to focus more on how our water resources are being impacted by these changes in our climate. And so I will just go into some of these main changes, which is a decrease in snowpack, decrease in stream flows, drier and warmer temperatures, longer summers and longer watering seasons, more frequent flooding events. Now, some of this decreased water supply, it's causing, with the less snowpack and the decrease in our stream flows, it's causing our water supplies to be disrupted. We're getting more frequent drought, decreased water quality, because as our water levels go lower and the stream flows are reduced, water quality becomes an issue. We have a shorter water availability window. As you can see with a lot of our irrigation districts this year, it's a very short watering season. And we have a higher wildfire risk, which we are all very aware of given what happened last year with the Almeida fire and then the open chain fire. But there's a lot of folks who think, oh, this isn't happening now. This will be in the future. We'll deal with that in the future, and the next generation will be the ones to have to figure this out. But the thing is that we're all that generation. We have to all be that water smart generation. Anyone living on Earth right now, we're all in this together. And so this isn't just something that's going to happen in the future. This is something that's actually happening now. And we can see those changes just looking around locally. Now, I'm not a climate change expert, but I know what I can see with my own eyes. And looking out across the valley, one of those things would be our lack and loss of snowpack. And you can see this chart on the right-hand side showing a reduction in snowpack, the projections going all the way to 2080. And you can see that shift from when we got a mix of rain and snow to a more rain-dominant environment, which means we're really going to have to change the way we look at how we are managing our water supply going forward. It doesn't just happen to us here in the valley. This is a chart showing snowpack across Oregon. This was taken in February, and it really shows the dashed line is where our normal snowpack should be, and the red line is where our current snowpack is. And as you can see, it's much lower than our average or where our normal snowpack should be for this time of year. We're also experiencing more drought. This is becoming more prevalent every year. Every year, I think I hear, this is the worst drought we've had. And every year we top that. And this year, I've heard it again, this is the worst drought we've had. And I think that Eric mentioned that April has been the hottest April on record so far. So this is just a good map showing the areas. It's changed over the course of the last couple of months, and we're really seeing a severe, extreme drought in our region. And even in central Oregon, they're experiencing an exceptional drought. Here is a snapshot of all of our, most of our reservoirs in our area. Now, these reservoirs are what serve our irrigation districts. These lake levels have been decreasing for many years. The snowpack that we've received and the rain and the precipitation has just not been enough to keep filling them each year. They are drawn down each year, and then we wait for the winter, and that's supposed to fill up our reservoirs, but we've had a lack of precipitation and a lack of snowfall, and that's compounded year after year. And so these are the levels that we're currently seeing as of 5/23. Hyatt Lake is down to 23%, Howard Prairie at 9%, Immigrant is 36%. Agate is doing a little bit better than the rest. And then if you can see up at the top, Willow Lake is actually full right now. And we'll get into that just a little bit later. Here's a great map showing our irrigation districts in the area. Now, the green Eagle Point Irrigation District actually gets water from Willow Lake. So you saw that Willow Lake was full. Eagle Point is actually doing okay right now. The rest of the area, and especially Talent Irrigation District, has had a really difficult year, and they're hurting very badly in Jackson County and in the rural areas outside of our cities. This map gives a good representation of those areas that are served by these irrigation districts. But again, the water levels have continued to go down, and they're already putting water restrictions on irrigators throughout the valley. This chart shows the total storage for Howard and Hyatt and Immigrant and Agate, Fish Lake, and 4 Mile reservoirs. And as you can see here, we are well below what our average water year should be. Last year, we thought we were low, and this year we're actually even lower. Now, I got a quote from TID, and they said this year will be less about trying to get full crop productions and more about keeping things alive. They will actually be shutting off water to people who are seen wasting it this year. And they're going to be doing 2-week cycles for delivery of water. They're going to be doing rotations this year, which I don't think I've ever seen them do, at least while I've been working in water resources. Never been this low of a year. And so everyone's having to cut back in every way that they can. They're encouraging farmers and people with crops to reach out for grants and to use their insurance, their crop insurance, because it sounds like some of the crops are just not going to make it through this summer. Now, that was the irrigation districts. There are, again, other resources of water in our valley. And Ashland, we're going to focus on Ashland now. Ashland gets water mainly from the Siskiyou Mountains, and the snowpack is summer storage. They have a limited aquifer, so they really rely on snow as storage to get through the summer months. Without that snow, it becomes much more difficult to make it through the summer without using alternative supplies. They serve about approximately 21,000 people. It's the Ashland Creek and the east and west forks of Ashland Creek. If you can see on that picture to the right, there's that little tiny reservoir there, and that's where all the water flows into, and that's called Reeder Reservoir. Winter use in Ashland is between 1.5 to 2 million gallons per day, but then in summer it peaks 5.5 to 6 million gallons per day. And the reason for that is irrigation of our lawns and our landscapes, and so it goes up by at least 3 to 4 times. This shows the snow water equivalent at Big Red Mountain. You can see the green line is the normal snowpack. It's the average, really. The other lines, 2021 actually doesn't look so bad. 2020 was the yellow line, and we're doing better than we were last year, at least for Snowpack on Big Red in Ashland. And if you can see that bottom red orange line, that was 2015. And if you all remember, 2015 was quite a bad year for water and for Snowpack in general, that really impacted not only the municipalities in the area, but also the irrigators. Ashland has three main water sources. One we just talked about was Reeder Reservoir. The other is TID water, and this water is usually brought through town. We have several people and several properties who do use the water for irrigation, but the city of Ashland also has a water right to pump about 2 million gallons per day up to the treatment plant to treat for drinking water. And this year, they're not going to have that supply. TID has let the city know that that water is not available for drinking. Our third supply in Ashland is the Rogue River. It's actually called the TAP, the Talent Ashland Phoenix Intertie. And that's a picture of the pipe that was constructed all the way to Ashland. That was done back in 2014. And it's a good thing that they did, because they will be relying on that tap line more this year than they ever have. Without having the TID to fall back on, they're going to have to go directly to the tap. So here's the water shortage operating procedures for Ashland. The snowpack was about 70% in May, but it dropped very quickly. So we had some melt off, that the snow melted very fast. But the good news is that Reeder Reservoir is 100% full. The stream flows are lower than they usually are, and demand is actually up. It's close to 5 million gallons per day. And if you remember on that last slide, our peak, usually in July or August, is 5.5. So we're already using more water this year than we have in the past. And it's because it's been drier. It's also because irrigation water has not been turned on to all those irrigators that have water throughout Ashland. And so they have to use city water in order to water their yards and landscapes. So that's the reason why the usage has gone up so much this year. They plan to request voluntary curtailment this summer. That's going to be the start. In the past, voluntary curtailment was very successful, and the community was able to reduce by about 30%, which is huge on voluntary. So no mandatory restrictions were necessary back in 2014 or 15. Again, they're going to discourage uses that waste water, but if they can't get the reductions that are necessary, then further curtailment could be necessary this year. They are also working on a water dashboard. I don't have the web address for that just yet. It's still being worked on, but ideally it's going to be a website that you can go to see what the flow is on the creeks, how full Reeder Reservoir is, and other important information as we go through the summer. And now we're going to jump to the Medford Water Commission. Now, the Rogue River and the Big Butte Springs watershed, they're actually in the Cascade Mountains. And so that's different than the Siskiyous. They both have different weather patterns. So some years the Siskiyous get a little more snow than the Cascades, and other years the Cascades get more snow than the Siskiyous. They rely both on snowpack and rain. There's an adequate aquifer storage because of the geology. It's very porous and it holds more water. And so that aquifer storage is able to support the water use and the demand of the community and all the communities that are served by it. It serves approximately 136,000 people. The capacity of the Big Butte Springs is 26.4 million gallons per day, and the Rogue River capacity is 45 million gallons per day. Winter use averages between 16 and 18 million gallons per day, and then the summer use averages about 47 million gallons per day. Now, these two sources, the Big Butte Springs on the left and Rogue River, They provide drinking water to the cities of Medford, Eagle Point, White City, Central Point, Jacksonville, Phoenix, Talent, Ashland on an emergency basis, and 2 water districts, Charlotte Ann and also Elk City. Now, the Big Butte Springs is having the lowest flows that it's had in 20 years. This is the precipitation as of, let's see, back in April, which we really haven't had any more to add to this chart, but you can see the dotted line, the small dotted line on the chart on the left really shows what our 20-year average is for precipitation. You see the dashed line is showing our current flow or rainfall up in the Cascades this year. And then the basin snowpack was about 52% of average. And remember when I talked about the differences between the Siskiyous and the Cascades, the Siskiyous actually got a little bit more of a snowpack this year, although it melted off a lot faster. This isn't great, but it isn't horrible. We are still getting some snowpack and some precipitation. However, it's still not enough to refill that aquifer at Big Butte Springs. And so what's happening, you can see from this chart, look at the dashed line. That is the current flow for Big Butte Springs. It's been going down year after year. The dotted line is the 20-year average. Now we are well below that this year. It's the lowest it's ever been. So what does that mean? We'll go over a couple of these. At the beginning of May, the snowpack was 52%. The good news is that Willow Lake, like we discussed, is 100% full, and Lost Creek Lake is almost full. Like I said, the stream flows are lower than normal, and we can only bring 19 million gallons per day from the springs, when normally we could do 26 million gallons. So we're actually we have 2 big, large pipelines that come and bring water from the Big Butte Springs. That comes about 30 miles into town. And we only have enough water to use 1.5 pipes this year. So what we're doing is actually supplementing more with the Rogue River water and water that's stored in Lost Creek Lake. Even though the flows from Big Butte Springs are the lowest that we've seen in 20 years, there is still enough to serve all of our communities going forward. However, you never know, conditions could change, and so we're constantly monitoring those flows to make sure that there's no need for curtailment this year, but we are going to keep an eye on that. We have an action team that's meeting every month to look at the stream flows and determine what our demand is, and then determine whether or not we need to implement any curtailment plan, which would start out with voluntary, of course. But right now, what we can see is that we have enough water to supply the communities going through the summer. We usually peak at about 62 million gallons per day. That's been our highest peak. And last year we hit almost 65, and that was because of the fire. And that put us at our max capacity. So during that time, the Medford Water Commission had to go into emergency curtailment. And that's stage 5 of our curtailment plan. Luckily, it only lasted about a week and we went back to voluntary. But we want to be prepared this year and make sure that we have a plan in place in case anything does happen again, like it did last year. And just like in Ashland, demand is up. Currently, it's 37 million gallons per day, which is a lot more than we've had in the past. This is a good graph that really shows where we're at for production. 2021, this is the production from the Rogue River. This is from Duff Treatment Plant, water treatment plant. We thought 2020 was going to be our highest year, but we've already surpassed that in 2021. And again, it's because of the record demand, given that irrigation districts had a late start, and given that we haven't had any rain, very little rain, and it is so dry. We did our first algal toxic testing, which was a non-detect, which is great news. And then our source water is not showing any impacts, negative impacts from the fires. So those are all good things. Now I'm just going to pause here for some questions. This is kind of the middle of the presentation. So if anyone has any questions about supply, I know I went over those pretty quickly. I could spend an hour just on each one of those issues. So I'm doing a very general overview of all of our resources here in the Valley. But please, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have right now.
So Julie, we have a question about the water flow in Bear Creek, and then also what's the level of Reeder Reservoir?
Oh, great questions. Reeder Reservoir is 100% full. So this right here, you can see a great picture. This is an older picture of Reeder Reservoir, but this is what it looks like right now, being 100% full. This will start to draw down very quickly, especially as we start to get warmer weeks. We've been lucky right now and usage has gone down a little bit, but it will start to go back up and we will start drawing down that reservoir. As far as Bear Creeks, all I know about the flow in Bear Creek is that it's less than it has been in the past. It's lower stream flows right now. I don't have an exact number though for you.
How does the lack of snowmelt filling Lost Creek Lake affect TAP?
That's a good question. So there is quite a bit of flow still. There's an adequate, it's almost full, Lost Creek. We did have less snowpack this year, but it doesn't appear to be impacting at least the Medford Water Commission's supply this year. We pull a very small amount of water that's flowing through the Rogue River. And we have, that's below what our water right is. So we have more of a water right to pull from, and we don't anticipate the Rogue River being a problem as far as supply goes for the Medford Water Commission, meaning TAP as well, because we're all pulling from there. TAP is being treated from the Rogue River, from Duff, and then it's pumped to Phoenix, Talent, and Ashland. And we do not foresee any major issues with that system this year.
Alan wondered if rather than talking about normal or average conditions, if maybe we should focus on trends.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, because there are fluctuations every year. And I've heard some people say, oh, climate change isn't a thing. Look, it's a normal year. We've got lots of snow. Well, if you look at the trends, just like Alan was saying, if you look at the trends, it's really showing a decrease in snowpack over a certain period of time. And so it's not, you can't just look at one year and say, oh, this is why. It is about the trends. And when I say, yeah, normal and average, I mean, what is normal and average anymore? I think we need to reevaluate what normal and average actually mean.
Okay, thank you for that. Ron wants to know how we know the level of the Butte Springs aquifer.
It's based on the flows that are coming out. Flows in the past have been about 52 CFS, which is, let's see, close to 33 million gallons per day, but it's dropped down to 42 CFS, which is 27 million gallons per day. So our normal is closer to 52, and it has been dropping, and it's been dropping every year. So just when we keep drawing it down, it fills up a little bit, draws down some more, fills up a little, and so it's slowly over time is drawing itself down. So we went from using 2 full pipes to just being able to use 1.5 pipe full of water, and that gives us that 19 million gallons per day. And we're using 37 million gallons per day. So the rest of that is being supplemented by the Duff treatment plant or the water out of the Rogue River.
Let's do one more and then we'll go back to your presentation. This is from Ron about the Rogue Valley Manor community uses the Bear Creek water for irrigation on their campus. What are the impacts of Bear Creek flows on that use?
No, that's a good question, and I don't think I have a good answer for that. All that I know is that that water, if you have a water right, you may be limited this year to what you can use as far as irrigation goes. And there, again, as far as the manner goes, we do have programs with the Medford Water Commission that could potentially help or look at ways to reduce the amount of water use on the irrigation, but also while keeping it looking healthy and beautiful at the same time. So there are techniques that can be used with irrigation to make sure that you're maximizing the water that you have.
All right, let's go back to your presentation and we'll pick up the rest at the end. Thanks, Julie.
Yeah, no problem. So we're gonna kind of jump into a little more of what we can do. We can't, make changes overnight, but we can work together to start taking baby steps towards making these changes, and then we'll all be going in the right direction. So I just wanted to point out the difference between water curtailment and water conservation. And curtailment, like we were talking about before, is usually a reactive. It's a short-term response to water shortage. So you might hear limitations like you can't water between this hour and this hour, or you need to cut back on your landscape watering, or maybe you could take shorter showers, anything to reduce the water for what's happening right now. And conservation is more of that long-term efficiency strategy. So upgrading your plumbing fixtures, retrofitting your landscapes. There's a lot of things we can do to prepare and make it so that drought isn't as impactful as we are going forward. Water conservation, I love this. Water conservation involves doing more with less and not going without. And I think a lot of people think of conservation as something being taken away from them, which it really isn't. It's about making sure that we're using the water we have as efficiently as possible. And so right now we are doing both conservation and potentially curtailment when it comes to Ashland. And so we're doing, everyone is working together to try to reduce water use, both from water users and from the municipality perspective. There are water efficiency programs that people can take advantage of. Now, these programs, any of the rebates and the giveaways are specific to the city of Ashland and to the Medford Water Commission. But they do offer irrigation evaluations, lawn replacement program, smart irrigation controller rebates. We can do indoor water use evaluations, appliance rebates like toilets and washing machines. Ashland is giving away shower heads and faucet aerators. And then there's also a lot of public outreach and resources like gray water education. We don't specifically have a rebate program for that, but we do have a lot of information that we can provide to help if someone is interested in doing a gray water system on their property. And then of course there's water-wise landscaping. Now, I'm going to go back to that. So like I said, not all of the cities in the area offer these programs, but I would be happy to talk to anybody who has questions or needs advice. And you are definitely free to change out your toilet if you want to. You may not get a rebate, but you're going to reduce your water use, and that's going to help you with your water bill. So there are still incentives to making some of these changes, even if you don't get a rebate. But again, I'm happy to talk to anybody about what they can do around their homes, even if you aren't in Medford or in Ashland. One of those programs that we offer is our irrigation evaluations. This is again a zone by zone evaluation. We go through, look at the efficiency, make suggestions on more efficient nozzles or irrigation components. We do a catch can test if necessary, which actually measures the amount of water that you're putting on your landscape. We look at the soil type, the plant types, the application rates of your sprinklers, and then we help you create a watering schedule. Now, if you're not able to participate in one of these programs, we do have several resources to help with understanding how much to water based on some of these criteria. One of those resources is ashland.or.us/weather. Every Monday, we're updating that website with some watering recommendations based on the current weather conditions. We have put together a sample watering guide. If you're not able to get online and take a look each week, this is a sample guide going through the summer months. The water need of our landscapes change every 2 weeks throughout the summer. So it's important to recognize that and not water the amount of water that we need in July and not do that in May or September, because the water needs definitely change during those months. So this is just for lawn, this schedule. And it depends on what type of sprinklers that you're using. If you have the standard pop-up and fan sprays, then you'd follow the column in the center. If you have the rotating sprinklers that go back and forth, you'd want to follow the column on the right. Now this is set up to be in full sun, and it doesn't take into account root depth, pressure, and microclimate. So just keep that in mind. This is just a starting point, but relatively this is a good start for you, and you can shift it and go up or down from these numbers throughout the summer. Down below, if you're using the same types of sprinklers that you use on lawn, so if you're using these pop-up sprays, you can actually reduce them on shrubs. If you're watering, you don't want to water your shrubs for the same amount of times that you're watering your lawn. It needs about half as much water. And so you can cut these number of minutes by 40 to 60% for shrubs, and even drought tolerant plants, you can cut down to 20 or 40% of what a lawn actually needs. This chart, very simple, but it really shows the need of water. The blue is the need of water for a lawn in the summer months, and the green is for water-wise plants. And so you can see how big of a difference it is between watering lawn and watering water-wise plants. And again, I'm not saying that lawn is bad by any means. This is just the science behind it. This is how much water a lawn actually needs and how much water the plants need. You could have a landscape with water-wise plants. You could have that using more water than your lawn if you don't have the system designed correctly or your timing is off. And I've seen some people with a lawn that are using less water than some of these landscapes with water-wise plants. And so it's not just about how much water it uses, but it's about the technique and how you're applying the water to your landscape. This is just a quick schedule. Again, we're taking into account 40% of lawn. ET stands for evapotranspiration. And so that's the amount of water that's evaporating from the soil and being transpired by your plants. So this is how much water the plants need back. And we've done the calculations, just like the last graph, to show you how many minutes per week you should be watering using microsprays and bubblers or low volume drip systems. Again, this is a starting point, and there is definitely a range in there, but it's a great place to start if you're not sure how much to water. Water-wise scheduling, again, coming back to the scheduling, it's very important. Like I said, a water-wise garden can use a lot more water if it's not programmed correctly. So using that local evapotranspiration data and changing your schedule every 2 weeks throughout the summer is actually going to help you reduce your water use. There's also a feature called the percent adjust feature where you can decrease or increase by about 10% on your controller, depending on the weather. So say we had a warm summer, but we're going to have a week of cooler temperatures. You can go to your controller and decrease all your times by up to 10% increments. And so that becomes really handy throughout the summer if you know we're going to have a cooler week. And if you know we're going to have a week of 110-degree temperatures, which I really hope we don't, you can also increase using that percent adjust. It just makes it easier instead of having to go in and reprogram each one of your zones. Obviously, watering every day is not usually necessary in most cases. Some situations require it, but in most cases, you really want to water deeply and less frequently. It's healthier for the root system, and it creates a more drought tolerant landscape. So if we do have the dry years, your landscape's not as stressed because it's been trained and it's got a good healthy root system. And this is common sense. Turn off the sprinklers when it rains. Use the rain to water your landscapes with instead of the irrigation system. And if you can, update to a new smart controller, which takes in weather data and creates a schedule for you based on your inputs into the controller. And so you water based off of the weather, and that communicates directly to your controller. Here's just a great picture of a lawn replacement property. The bottom, the lawn before, was actually using more water than the landscape at the top. So the water-wise plants are using less water than the lawn was at the bottom. And I think it looks beautiful. It provides a lot of character, and it just is a lot less water intensive than the lawn. And then we have an example of smart controllers. And I don't know, I know that there are still some of those controllers down the bottom right that are out there. So if you have one of those, you might consider upgrading to a new controller, or maybe even a smart controller. There's great resources for water-wise landscaping in our valley. Ashland has a great water-wise landscaping website. Medford has one as well. There's some, my favorite feature on there is at the very top, when you get to the page, go to the toolbar, click on plants, and go to guided search. The guided search will allow you to select what type of plants you want to plant. So say you want to plant perennials. It will then ask you how tall you want them to grow, what soil you have, what color flower you want them to flower, when you want them to flower, and a couple other criteria, full sun, half sun, or shade. You hit enter and it populates all the plants that meet all that criteria. So it's a really helpful guide if you're not sure what to plant in certain areas. So I encourage you all to check these out. So again, I'm going to go through a few of these. Maximize our water use and minimize waste as much as possible. Schedule a sprinkler evaluation if you're able to. Plug up drip emitters that aren't watering any plants. I see this all the time. And things happen, of course. You know, a plant dies or you take it out and you forget maybe that the drip emitter is still running to that area. Little things like just plugging up drip emitters will save quite a bit of water in your landscape. And then another common sense issue, just fix the leaks. Don't let water flow. If you know you have a leak, do what you can to get it fixed. We talked about this earlier, don't water every day. Lower the pressure on your sprinkler system. If you have too high a pressure, it can use a lot more water, and it actually will atomize. And so a lot of that water that's supposed to go on your lawn is atomizing into the air and it's evaporating. And so high pressure, if you have too high a pressure, look into reducing the pressure. You can either put in a pressure regulator at the meter, or you can put in inline pressure regulators to each valve. Another thing I thought of this year, and people are asking, well, what else can I do? I've done all these things. What else can I do? Watering by hand can actually reduce a lot of water use. You're more active out there. You're not watering as long. Instead of running the automatic system, you can just water the plants that actually need it. You can even turn on, if you have an automatic system, just run it manually. In some areas, perhaps you could turn it off. Perhaps there's a zone that really doesn't need a whole lot of water and you can just hand water it. So those are some ideas going forward this summer. If you've already done everything else possible, consider watering by hand. Catch excess water in a bucket. I've seen people do this from hanging baskets. You know, when you put water in hanging baskets, there's a lot of water that drains out the bottom. Collect some of that water in a bucket and water some of your other plants with that. Also, use gray water for trees. Consider putting in a laundry to landscape system, which is the easiest gray water system to put in typically, and use your washing machine water to water your trees. Usually your washing machine doesn't produce enough water to water your entire landscape, but it will help if you have some trees that you don't want to lose on your property, especially if you're living in the rural areas where you're really not getting the water in your wells or the water from the irrigation districts. So using gray water from indoors can help offset some of that that need. And then use a soil moisture meter. If you see in this picture, this was a 105-degree day last year. This is an area that has a rock mulch, and the top looks dry. And I stick that moisture meter in there about 4 to 6 inches, and you can see the red wand goes all the way over to moist and wet. So you may not need to water every day just because the surface of the soil looks dry. Just a few inches below where the roots are could still have moisture. So that's another way to reduce your water usage by just going out and checking to see if the landscape actually needs to be watered. Another thing that I see a lot, and I just love this picture, I have to give a shout out to Stephanie Danny who drew this. I love her design. We see this all the time. You know, we want our plants, we want to train them not to need or not to overuse water. But with some dry spots, when I see areas that have dry spots, whether it's in the landscape or in the lawn, a lot of times a design issue is the problem and not the fact that it's not getting enough water. So you could add another emitter or actually fix the sprinkler that's the problem instead of running the entire system for longer. And I see that a lot of times because if you're not aware of it, you can actually think, okay, well, that plant's dying, so I need to turn this irrigation up. But maybe it's just that plant. So just look at that when you're considering changing your times. Consider removing lawn if you're not using it, you don't need it, and plant climate appropriate plants. Make regular adjustments to your schedule, your watering schedule, and amend the soil. The soil is so important and it's often overlooked when it comes to water conservation and watering. You can, if you amend the soil, it will help retain soil moisture, and there will be less evaporation. Also, mulch with ground cover. That helps retain that soil moisture and reduce the evaporation. But keep in mind, fire-wise, and not put mulch or large chunky mulch near your home. Use more of the compost or the thinner mulch is what at least the city of Ashland is recommending. Read your water meter, because sometimes I don't know how much water, my washing machine uses or how much water that one zone or my 4 zones use. So read your water meter before you turn something on and then after. And you can really get a good idea of how much water you're using by doing those different tasks. Replacing your old toilet and your washing machine can save you a lot of water. I know it's not outdoors, but this will save you water all through the season. And toilets and washing machines are some of the highest uses of water indoors. And then again, request those low flow shower heads and aerators. And believe me, they work. I had to try them out because I don't like telling people to try something or use something if I haven't tried it out first. And I really liked these low flow shower heads that the city of Ashland has. So if you're in the city, reach out to them, reach out to me, and we'll see if we can get you some of those. Now I'm almost through. I know I'm getting close on time. So just a couple more things. Again, let's not forget about our indoor uses. Yes, a lot of our water, our usage goes up 3 to 4 times during the summer months because of irrigation, but there are ways to reduce water indoors also that will last through the entire year. And that's toilets, shower heads, aerators, and washing machines. And you can save up to 45,000 gallons per year. So, what can water suppliers do? We've been talking a lot about what customers can do and what water users can do, but what can our municipalities and our irrigation districts do? Well, as we're looking at this, not just right now, but for the long term, invest in upgrades to infrastructure that are going to promote efficiency and resilience and reduce the carbon footprint. Applying for grants and loans, low interest loans. There's a lot available right now with the Water Infrastructure Act. And so if municipalities and utilities and irrigation districts look into this, maybe they can make some upgrades to their infrastructure to make it more efficient and more resilient going forward as we continue to deal with this in the future. Long-term planning, very important. Water master plans, WMCPs, that stands for Water Management and Conservation Plans. Also, there's climate action plans. I'll just jump down to that. There's a new manual of water supply practices that came out from AWWA, which is the American Water Works Association, to help utilities plan and adapt to changes in climate that's going to impact and affect their water supplies. So this is something that just came out, very new, but I think it's encouraging to see that that AWWA is behind this and is providing this manual to help these utilities make these changes. Facility water evaluations and implementing efficient system upgrades. I can tell you that we are going to each of our pump stations. We're looking at the irrigation systems there. We are evaluating how much water we are using as a utility on our own properties. And we're making changes to those systems and upgrading to make them more efficient. And then being proactive with long-term conservation and efficiency programs if possible, or just working with the community to provide resources on how to use water more efficiently and more wisely. And then again, just to summarize, what can water users do? You can support the upgrades to the water system and supply infrastructure to improve the efficiency and resiliency. We really need the backing of the community in order to make those changes to the systems. And those are very important as we go forward. Making changes to your landscaping and irrigation practices, upgrading your indoor fixtures and your appliances, maybe just thinking about a change in perspective. I mean, how much water do we really need? And if you don't know, maybe find and ask someone that does know, ask for help and see if you can figure out how, the water that you're using is appropriate for your size property and for your home. Less water use reduces our carbon footprint, not just at home, but also the utilities. It's less of a strain on the utilities as we reduce the amount of water that we're demanding from the system. Treatment costs can go down. And just think about the changes that you make indoor will also impact your sewer bills, your wastewater contributions. And those steps can reduce the carbon footprint that a water treatment plant or a wastewater treatment plant is using, because you are also reducing your water use at home. Using less water without diminishing your quality of life, it really can be done. There's so much that we can do, and if there's one thing that this whole COVID issue has shown me, is that our society and humans are able to adapt very quickly to a situation, to an emergency situation. So I know it can be done, and I know that we can continue to have a great quality of life, but by using less water. And the last is understand the water system. Really value the water that we have. Love your water. Take pride in it. Tell your friends. And the more we understand our system and love our water, the more that we're going to preserve it for the future. I'll just finish up. Here's some. I know I didn't touch a lot on rural and wells. That's really not my expertise, but I have a lot of resources here for you to reach out to. A lot of these folks at the OSU Extension Office, Soil and Water Conservation District, the Oregon Water Resources Department. I mean, just some great information and helpful resources for folks who are in Jackson County, who are in the rural areas, farmers, and the agricultural community. So don't feel like you have no resources, because they are there to help you get through this year too. And some information there for Lost Creek Lake. And that is it.
Well, thank you very much, Julie. We have some questions, so we'll get to as many as we can in the last few minutes we have here. Mary asked, shouldn't the city already be requesting voluntary water savings by the public?
Yes. Right now, the city of Ashland is working towards that. I think that's a great. As soon as it starts to draw down, the plan is to ask people to reduce. Right now, the Medford Water Commission is just monitoring our supplies, and if any conditions change,
So Julie, I'm not sure, I lost part of your answer and I'm not sure if it's your system or ours, but I think we'll go to the next question and hope it was our system. The next question is, if the Medford Water District pumps more water out of the Rogue River that has downstream effects, does Grants Pass get impacted?
can you repeat that question? I lost you there for a second.
If we keep pumping water out of the Rogue River, is that going to impact Grants Pass?
As far as I understand, Grants Pass should also have a sufficient supply this year. Our pools on the Rogue River will not impact them in a negative way.
There's a question about, is there a YouTube to show how the WaterWise, how to do the WaterWise controller? And I think if that exists, maybe we'll add that to the resources that we have on the website that we'll talk about in a second.
Are you talking about how to use a smart controller?
I'm not sure. How do you use the WaterWise controller? So I'm thinking so.
Okay, it depends on the type of controller, because there's a few different smart controllers that are out there and available on the market. So it would depend on that type of controller.
Okay, so somebody could probably search on YouTube with that name and.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Do we do any water recycling?
Right now, I would say, as far as a system, no. In something called purple pipe, if anyone's familiar with that word, that would be water recycling using wastewater effluent. And when I say that, I mean treated effluent for irrigation purposes. But no, it's very expensive to change your infrastructure to put in purple pipe. As far as reuse goes, we're just looking at how we can help people reuse their gray water. I think Eric had his hand up because he might have something else to chime in there about.
Eric, you're muted.
You're on
you
mute.
have to unmute.
Irrigation districts, in effect, use recycled water from the irrigation district above. So the runoff from the Calendar irrigation district is picked up by the Medford irrigation and so on. So there's some efficiencies in recycling there.
Yeah, that's a good point.
All right, I think we're going to have to go on to the last bit of wrap up. Can you see my shared screen? Yes. Okay, and I know I have a bit of delay, so we'll try to adjust to that. We've created links for tonight's presentation and contact information. If you go to socan.eco/action and then select water conservation, you'll get those links. And Julie, did you include your contact information as well? Is that in that on that page?
Yes, yeah, it's actually in my last slide, but I'll just throw it out there right now. I have my phone number. It's 541-774-2435. And my email is julie.smitherman@medfordwater.org. So please, anyone feel free to reach out to me with any questions that you have.
And Julie, could you put that in the chat also while we're going through this last little bit? Thank you very much. We have a special treat tonight. Amelia is working with Socan. She's a student at Willamette University, and she's going to be doing a project and would like to interact with some of you. And so we said that she could have a couple minutes tonight to just identify herself. So if you get an email or a phone contact from her, you would at least know who she is. So go ahead, Amelia.
Hi, everyone. Like Kathy said, my name is Amelia, and I'm a student at Willamette University. I'm working on a summer research grant looking at the rhetoric used by environmental activists within their organizations. And I have the privilege to work with you guys. I just wanted to introduce myself to put a name to the face. Also, because I'm going to be interacting with you guys. So what this is going to look like is I'm going to be observing some of your meetings throughout the summer, and I'm also going to be holding interviews. And so I want to put a call out for that in case any of you are interested. I'll drop some information in the chat, so my email, and then a document that you can look at that gives you some information about the interviews. So yeah, if you're interested in taking part in those, feel free to reach out to me. I might also reach out to you, or Kathy might reach out to you. So yeah, if you hear about that and are interested, let me know. And I'm really excited to work with you guys. I think this is going to be very fun.
Thank you very much, Amelia, and we're looking forward to the interactions as well. If this is something you want to make sure you're a part of, make sure you connect with Amelia so that she can include you as she's doing her work this summer. I'm going to very quickly go through some of the things that Socan is doing, and everything I'm talking about is on the Socan calendar, socan.eco/events. We're organized by different programs and projects. So we're organizing the things that are happening based on that. The Natural Resources Program has a forest and fire project. That group is meeting on June 16th, and anybody is welcome to join. The Zoom links are all on the Socan calendar if you're interested in joining. We have a group on the coast. Coastal Socan has a monthly meeting. Their next meeting is June 16th. It's talking about addressing the challenges of climate change and how that opens opportunities. So a different perspective as we consider dealing with climate change. The monthly meeting, our June monthly meeting is going to be on June 29th, always the last Tuesday of the month. And we're very excited. We've had a lot of requests for talking about communication. And so this is going to be climate change communication challenges and opportunities. Jennifer Marlin, who is a research scientist with the Yale Program on Climate Change Communication, which is the biggest in the nation, is going to join us. So we're so glad that we're on Zoom for this meeting and she can be with us. Registration is required and that link is on the calendar. I would encourage you to sign up for that as soon as possible because I think we might reach our limit on that one. Sustaining Climate Activists is not meeting in May and June, but we'll be back in July. We have a project that was created by a student working with us from Oregon State, Businesses Taking Action. So we have these businesses that are part of that at this time. We encourage you to do business with them and look at what they're doing in terms of being more environmentally sustainable and also more socially responsible. Master Climate Protector is finished for this year. The next course will be February of 2022. We're hoping that it's going to be face-to-face and looking forward to that. If you know anybody who's interested, they can sign up, and it only means that they're getting information at this point, no firm commitment. The government program, the federal and state project, is not going to meet in June. Their next meeting will be July the 12th. And the county and city project does not have a meeting scheduled, but discussions are ongoing about that next meeting. The Ashland Climate Action Project is focusing on Ashland. That group will have a Zoom conversation in in the month of June, and the details will be on the Socan calendar when the date and everything is established. Other projects, climate in the classroom presentations, water management, offshore wind, a variety of things. This is being recorded, and so all that information will be in the recording. If you're interested in any of those, the person is there to contact. Other groups, we have a couple of things to share. There's a program titled The West is Burning. It's a virtual screening and then a discussion. It's tomorrow from 6 to 8. To register, the URL is there, but if you go to Socan's Facebook page, the events, it's linked there and you can pick up the registration. That's sponsored by Rural Voices for Conservation Coalition and also Rogue Forest Partners, as well as the people who have done the movie. Citizens Climate Lobby has a 2-day event, a push for price on carbon. That's going to be on June 12th and 13th, and the registration link is there. But you can also go on Facebook, Southern Oregon CCL, and then go to their events. Juneteenth celebration. This is sponsored by BASE, which is the Black Alliance and Social Empowerment of Southern Oregon. Saturday, June 19th in Pear Blossom Park. Anybody is welcome to go. The focus is on enriching community, educate, support Black businesses, and celebrate freedom. They have the event on their Facebook page, which is BASE, B-A-S-E, Oregon, and then go to their events. ROCPAC is Rural Oregon Climate Political Action Committee, and contact Hogan Shiro if you want if you're interested in that, a voice for people in rural Oregon. Like to do a very big thanks to Julie for her presentation. This was just excellent, and some more questions there that I'm sorry we didn't get to. A real source of information for our Valley. And thanks also to Eric for making the arrangements for the presentation for tonight. And to all of you for joining us. We're glad you're here. We had a really good group tonight and always appreciate people who take the time to learn more. Water is an essential resource. You need to be thinking, we all need to be thinking about how we can take action for ourselves and talking to our neighbors and our families. It's really, really important that we look at water and how we're using it as we go forward. And finally, I sent a link to the survey, and I think I sent it early and it confused some people. If you can look at your emails and complete that, it's very helpful to get your feedback. It's hard to know when we're Zooming just what people are thinking and how it's working for them. Socan's website is socan.eco. If you have any questions, info@socan.eco. And if you're able to donate to Socan to help us keep going, we always appreciate that. We'll stay on for a few more minutes if people want to talk about different things, but we'll end the recording at this point, and we thank you very, very much for being with us this evening. Thank you.